Welcome to Jesus, Jazz, and Dessert Wine. I'm Lynnette Barber, your minister of flavor, along with the one and only maestro, Will Ellis. And our musical selection for tonight is 32 Flavors, Dianne Reeves. Switch your eyes and baby look closer. I'm not between you and your ambition. I am a poster girl with no poster. I am 32 flavors and then some. I'm beyond your political vision. So you might wanna turn your head. Cause one day you're gonna get hungry and read all the words you just said. Both my parents taught me about goodwill, and I've done well by that name. Just the kindness of loving on strangers is more than I can explain. Still, there's many who's turned out their poor life, so I think they're not home. Here in the dark, tell our past, and only let them alone. So, switch your eyes and baby look closer. I'm not between you and your ambition. I am a poster girl with no poster. I have 32 flavors and then some. I'm beyond your political vision. So your mind gonna turn your head. One day you're gonna get hungry and eat all the words you just said. If you a big girl, too pretty as you do. Cause everyone harbors a secret agent. The skinniest girl in the room. And God help you if you are feeling and you dare to rise above the ash. 1,000 eyes will float over jealousy while you're just flying by. So keep your eyes and baby look closer. I'm not between you and your ambition. I am a poster girl with no poster. I am 32 flavors and some. I'm beyond the old vision. So your mind gonna turn your head. Someday you're gonna get hungry and eat all the meaning by getting in you. And I would like to stay for the record. I did everything I could do. I'm not saying I'm a saint. I just don't want to live that way. No, I'll never be a saint. But you'll always hear me say, switch your eyes and baby look closer. I'm not between you and your ambition. I am a poster girl with no poster. I am 32 flavors some, and I'm beyond the vision. So you might wanna turn your head. 'Cause someday I'm gonna get hungry and eat off the world you see.
Woo! Okay, listen. Lynnette Barber, my minister of flavor and musical vibes, always understands the assignment. Woohoo! Hey, fam. I am Alexus Rhone, aka Alexis Grace, the founder of Truth Meets Story LLC, expanding empathy one story at a time, and your host for Jesus, Jazz, and Dessert Wine. Jesus, Jazz, and Dessert Wine is a faith and adult storytelling series. By faith, we mean we explore the mystery or perceived absence of God in our lived reality. And we do this exploration via a tool called adult storytelling. By adult storytelling, I mean stories that are told by adults, to adults, for people with a developed adult context. And for that reason, we don't issue any apologies for how anybody shows up on this space. We assume that everyone is here, can handle what it means to be here. 7-year-olds have a story time, and now so do adults. You're welcome. Okay, so listen, we are trying something new today. We're doing a hybrid version. So there is a studio audience that is over to my right that was, they came in and they like, okay, wait, what's the setup? So it's like we have 3 different setups. We have Lynnette Barber, the musician, in one space. I'm here in a second space. And then upstairs in their studio are the storytellers. And so we are trying these different things because there is a lot happening tonight on May 10. Wednesday. Now, my mission when I first set this date was to say, hey, listen, it's Mother's Day week and I want to give our Aunties and our Godmothers some love. What I did not know was that Lizzo would be in Raleigh while Alexis is online and Trump is on CNN. So it's a lot that's going on this day. And everybody's trying to figure out now what I do. So I figured the best way to be sure that everyone was able to get the information, the stories, the love, the affirmation that's going to come forth in these stories is for me to simply try this hybrid version. For those who are here, y'all know there's some wine over here, so like don't be empty-handed. Okay, oh, they lifted it up. They're like, okay. They're like, wine has been served. Woohoo! Wow, I am in such an interesting place. All is well. So let me start by saying that I had posted, I think it was last night, I sent an e-blast out talking about some ruminations that I was doing on, and I think I titled it like lessons we were told about boys and sexuality that we should have been told about business. And then the first lesson that I came up with was don't give it away. Make them pay for it. And then I thought, you know what, that sounded kind of foul, like make them pay for it. And so I started to process and I was like, maybe I'm not the one that God has called to do this list of like things that we should have been told about boys and sexuality that we were not business. I was just kind of on this other thing. I was literally just trying to get some stuff out. And one of the things that I've been trying to get out is what does it mean to assess value to a particular thing? Who is it that we get our value from? Where are we learning these lessons? Where are we doing all of the things that we need to do? Who's helping us get there, right? And so it's been really a very, very interesting season for me. But all is well in all manner of things because I have felt I felt connected to, and I'm going to pull her picture up. She's my Auntie. I have been using her in a lot of my graphics. Okay, so the person here in this picture, that is my Aunt Mary. And she is, I have been feeling her spirit and her energy a lot on the content that I have been creating, the stories that I've been telling, all of the ways that I have been showing up in the world. And so that's why for the graphic for Jesus, Jazz, and Dessert Wine, Crazy Aunties and Godmothers, I use that picture. And then for another piece that I have written and will be produced this summer for the Women's Theater Festival, I also use that picture. I love her dearly. I am grateful for her. I love my mother. Hey, mama, she online. I know she watching me somewhere. So what I'm about to say, like, I'm not talking about it behind her back. But, that's my mother's oldest sister. And when I would ask mom to tell me stories about her, mom always likes to lead with all of the bad stuff. One of my friends who's a psychologist, she says that the bad stuff is the thing that just kind of clings to us. And so that's kind of natural. So like, she's like, show grace to your mama. So grace for you, mama, grace for you. But she would always tell the bad stuff. And for me, I'm like, listen, I need for you to tell me the whole story. Don't just give me the bad stuff. And when I say tell me the whole story, then sis begin to go in. And I'm like, oh, shit. Now we're getting somewhere. I am getting the kind of content and the information that I need that helps to fan the flames of hope, that helps to do all of the things, that helps to tell a complete story about my Aunt Mary. And so mom has these amazing stories of her fortitude and her strength. But I have a story that I personally witnessed about the way that she just wasn't with that bullshit. You could not come at her any kind of way. So Aunt Mary was the oldest of all of my grandmother's gifts from God. Scripture says that children are gifts from God. Aunt Mary was the first of the 5 gifts that my grandmother would have. Hey, Grandma, I love you too from heaven. I know you watching me. You and Aunt Mary, y'all are with me in this space, and you're more than welcome. You're welcome. So I called your name out. She was that kind of person. But anyway, I digress. Grandma had 5 gifts from God. Aunt Mary was her oldest gift, and so there were 3 girls and 2 boys. Both boys are preachers. All of the women, the majority of the women in the family married preachers, right? So there's always that, sort of Jesus ethos that has always been, just a very present part of my upbringing. Now, Aunt Mary also, was a Jesus lover too, but she also loved Heineken. That's just who she was. That's how she showed up in the world. And on this one particular story, we were celebrating my grandmother's 5th and final gift, her baby girl, my Aunt Margaret Ann. She was turning 60. We had a big party for her, rented out Chasewood Clubhouse in Missouri City, Texas. And everything was like just going all kinds of, we were having a good time and everything was good. She had a comedian there. There was a commemorative video. We'd had dinner. I mean, it was really, really a wonderful affair. And then we turned the music up. And I was the first person to hit the dance floor. Second person was my cousin Erica. Now she's married to a preacher. And so when the other preachers' wives were like, oh, that's how we doing it, they joined us. And then when everybody else was like, oh, snap, the first lady's on the dance floor, so they joined us. So next thing you know, everybody's on the dance floor, we're having a good time, right? Well, when I think it was a Frankie Beverly song, and somebody with, the dance floor was good and warmed up. And we had gotten to a point in the part of the song, or the dance was warmed up and the song came out. I think it was a Frankie Beverly song. It was somebody who had a really good breakdown. Like when you get to the part of the song, we were like, break it down. And, and then you do a little extra. So we were, it was one of those songs. My grandmother was at the table and I went over to her. I extended my hand. I was like, come on, Grandma, dance with me. And she got up and she danced. And when, she was moving side to side and the whole crowd was like, yeah, they were just cheering her on. Then we got to the part of the song where you do the breakdown. Now, I break it down from the knees. You can break it down from the knees or from the waist. I break it down from the knees. So I get in place early. And I'm like, okay, come on, Grandma. You ready? Like, get it ready. Get it ready, girl. My cousin Erica, she breaks it down from knees. Come on, Mama, get it ready. And everybody starts to slow down as they're watching and see, like, what's she going to do? What's she going to do? People on the dance floor, they begin to move a little slower. What's she going to do? What's she going to do? Everybody on the front row, they send their head out. They're like, what's she going to do? What's she going to do? People on the back row, they stand up. So they tease like to see, like, what's she going to do? What's she going to do? And then we get to the part of the song and I yell, break it down. And she breaks it down from the waist. And then she pops back up. The whole crowd goes nuts. Everybody's just having the absolute best time and cheering her. And we're just really having a good time. But to my right, on the front row, were my Aunt Mary and one of my preacher uncles, Uncle Neas. Both of them were on the front row. Both of them walk with canes. When Grandma broke it down, both their canes came off the floor. Aunt Mary's cane came up over my uncle's head because his cane was going out, was extended out to the dance floor. He was trying to pull my grandmother off the dance floor. He did not like that his mother was breaking it down like a fraction. He did not like that look for her. But then Aunt Mary has her cane up over his head. and her lips are pursed, her eyebrows are knitted, and she is saying between her pursed lips, "You better let my mama dance." And at this point, I'm like, oh Lord, the octogenaire is about to bust up the party. Like they are for real about to set it off up in here. And so I'm the only one that's witnessing this apparently. And I have my sanctified imagination. I'm letting this play out. And in my sanctified imagination, I am seeing these two people, both of them with canes, both of them committed to their position, both of them thinking that what they're doing is right. Everybody's committed to their course of action. My uncle takes his cane in my sanctified imagination and he latches my grandmother's wrist. And immediately, in my sanctified imagination, my Aunt Mary's cane comes crashing down over his head. I see blood splattered everywhere. He looks shocked. He pulls his hand back and sees it all red. He looks over at his sister. He drops his cane. He hobbles to the bathroom. The whole party stops dancing. Everybody is like, oh, Lord, what's going to happen? Nobody is saying anything because ain't nobody grown like that. She has just shown she with the business. She went up inside his head with that cane. She told him. The only person in my sanctified imagination who's saying anything is my grandmother. And she's like, what ail you? Mary, what's going on with you? You going crazy? And Aunt Mary is cool as all get out. She was like, look, I told him. I tried to tell him. He wasn't listening. So we're sitting there. Everybody, nobody can say anything. Grandma and Aunt Mary, they're going back and forth. Unbeknownst to us, Uncle Nias is in the restroom, and he didn't call the police. And he's like talking about how my brain is leaking. Wait, she trying to kill me. It's a murder in here. Like they tried to kill me. Like she's still in here. Help, I need you to send the police. And then the rest of the party is still until we start to hear these sirens. And then they grow louder, and then we look out the window and we see the red lights and the blue lights. They're blinking. And we're like, oh, man. He hears the sirens. Uncle Nias goes out to the front of the clubhouse to greet the police officers. As he's out there with them, Aunt Mary signals for one of the kids to come over to her. And she says, take my purse. And then we grab her purse and then we walk away. Right then, the police come in. And my uncle is pointing out, that's her. She the one who tried to kill me. She the one who tried to kill me. So the police is like trying to calm him down. And then they ask her, ma'am, did you hit this man on the head with your cane? And Aunt Mary just look at him. She don't say nothing. And then Uncle Nias is sitting there making this case. And he's like, well, she got the cane still there in her face. Don't you see where it's dent? He pointing to the dent on the He's like really having, he's like just really all out of sorts. And then the police say, ma'am, please stand. Put your hand behind your head. Put your hand behind your back. And now the rest of the party's like, oh, man, are you kidding? Like, we can't believe that this is happening. So she stands, puts her hands behind her, like, she's just cooperating. And then as she walks by with her hands behind her back, she turns her head and she says, call your Uncle Johnny. He know what to do. And then she swivels back to Uncle Nias and she winks her eyes. And now he had this like grin on his face because he's like, I got her. And then the minute she winked, he was like, wait, you got to go pick up her common law husband. They not married. They just living together. They common law. And so she walks out and then I come back too. All of this is like been my sanctified imagination as both their canes raised. So I'm here in the party still. Canes are still lifted up. And all I could think was this would be really bad if it plays out the way that I believe that it could, the way that I just, in my sanctified imagination, it did. His cane is still extended out, trying to latch onto my grandmother. So what I did was I stepped in front of him because I knew that if he touched my grandmother with that cane, even if the cane so much as touched her shadow, then that was all she wrote. Aunt Mary was with the business. She was not playing with him. So I stepped in front. And when he saw me step in front, he suddenly reassesses the situation. He looks up and he sees that cane above his head. And he's like, oh, snap. So I believe that in his mind, he began to run that same scene. Everything that just happened with that I just thought of, same scene ran in his head. And when he was done, he lowers his cane back to the floor. My Aunt Mary lowered her cane back to the floor, and the party continued uninhabited. And my uncle gets up and he ends up leaving the party altogether. My Aunt Mary signals for me to come towards her, and I go over there and she says, "Baby, go on over to the refrigerator and grab me a Heineken." She was not playing with him or them Heinekens. But my grandmother also, unbeknownst to me, had also seen the scene, because when she saw her preacher son walk out, she figured that it had something to do with her dancing and breaking it down like a fraction. So she decides, "Oh, baby, I'm tired. Let me go ahead and take me back to my seat." So I walked her back to her table. The crowd clapped, cheered. We had a good time. My Aunt Mary was an amazing person who helped me to see that sometimes you just got to raise your cane and let people know what you better not do is keep my mama from dancing. You better let my mama dance. That was my auntie acting all kinds of crazy and leaving me with this amazing story. Tonight, I want to center our crazy aunties and our godmothers. Wanted to prep you for that. Now, when I say crazy, a lot of times people are like, "Oh no, no, like what?" They make it a bad thing. Dave Chappelle, I think, was the one who said it's dismissive. So I'm not trying to be dismissive or even disrespectful. I am simply trying to say this amazing person showed up in my life and my world and gave me hella crazy stories, and I just shared one of many with her. But she is with us in this space. I welcome her energy. And I welcome you to this space. And I want you to sit back and I want you to take in our two featured storytellers. The first story that you're about to hear, she is, oh my God, she was, she has so many different stories that she can tell. And I've already been telling her, I need you to tee up the next one, because when she shared this one with me, I was absolutely in love with the story and loving her as a storyteller. This is her first time being featured at Jesus Jazz and Dessert Wine, but it's not her first time on the mic. And she's going to take us to Texas, where everything is bigger. So family, please welcome Elkema as she dresses her truth in story. Elkema, your mic is on. You have the mic on.
Hey everyone. So I was just saying while I was unmuted, I was thanking Alexus for being the phenomenal, wonderful person that she is, and for that fabulous introduction that she gave me. I want to say hello to all of you that are out there, and also to the live audience that's right in front of me. Hello. So I'm going to tell a story about one of my aunts, and I'm going to take us back, way back, to about 10 years ago. It's 2012. I'm about 20 years old, and I'm in college. And I'm also deeply depressed. I'm visibly depressed. I was actually flunking out of school that semester. And so my school found it convenient to ask me to leave to take a break. It quite honestly felt more like a bribe, because my dean basically told me, "Hey, if you take the semester off, we won't flunk you. We'll just give you a pass for the semester. But if you don't take the semester off, we won't give you the pass. We'll give you an F for failure." And I did not want that, because I had already felt like a failure with myself in my life. So at the very least, I wanted to not have that on my report card. So I obliged, and I opted to take the semester off. But there was one little problem. I didn't have a place to live. the home that I grew up in New York, I feel like I couldn't go back there. And so, I still had some family in New York City. So I had asked some cousins of mine, hey, can I stay with you? And they said, sure, that's fine. But it was clear quite quickly that, I couldn't stay there for long. And so, I had to find another place to stay fast. And not really just a place to stay, but also, really a place to heal. So my mom, my C-suite mom, she had suggested and arranged that I stay with an aunt of mine that lived in Texas, Houston, Texas. I didn't really know this aunt. I didn't grow up with her, but her and my mom were close. They were only 15 months apart. And so when my mom asked her, hey, can Elkema stay with you? My aunt said, yeah, sure, of course. So I went to go stay with her, which sounds like problem solved, end of story, right? No, wrong. So I arrived to Houston, and my aunt didn't know that I was depressed. My mom didn't share this information with her. My mom didn't realize I was depressed, so she knew she had to share that information. So when I got there and I told my aunt, hey, I'm here and I have a therapy session in 2 days, my aunt felt betrayed. Those are her exact words, like, I feel betrayed. And that pretty much set the tone for the rest of my stay. On top of that, we had a very interesting culture clash. So again, my aunt's in Texas where everything is bigger, but I'm from New York City, which is the Big Apple. Hey. And one thing that I noticed about the people in Houston that really stands out is that they love Jesus in Texas. And I mean, love Jesus, okay? We love Jesus in New York too, but they really love Jesus in Texas, okay? And so my aunt went to this mega church. It was like a huge church. It had like stadium seating and like a huge stage. It had like Broadway production style equipment. It had like professional dancers, professional musicians, blinged out pastors, even more blinged out wives. Everyone's running up and down the aisles, tears on their face, hands in the air, shouting. I mean, it was a lot, which was a lot for me because I didn't come from that kind of church background. And so my aunt took my culture shock as lack of enthusiasm for Jesus, which she was not going to tolerate in her house. So to say the least, we had quite a few spats. Just to share a couple, I remember once, she thought I ate too much sometimes. So I was eating a cracker and she literally grabbed it on my hand and put it in her mouth. And I was like, what? Like, I want that cracker. And then another time, I got very upset with her and her family, and I actually stood on their kitchen, like they had some bar stool chairs. I actually stood on those and started yelling at them. Not one of my brightest moments, I will admit. And another time, my aunt told me over the phone, she was like, I think the devil's using you against me. And when she said that, that hurt, because I feel like in the Christian community I grew up in, that's like one of the worst insults you can tell someone, is to like associate them to the devil. So, we had a lot of tension. But, Christians are warriors for Jesus. And so despite my devilish ways, my aunt tried to work with me and my depression. One day she sits me down for a meeting, which is a big deal because in my family, you don't get sit down for a meeting. You just get told things. And so I was like, okay, this is about to get real. So she sits me down and she goes, I really think God brought you here so we could save you. I don't know how I felt about that. But she continues, I really think, when you go to church, you should like praise more because it'll uplift you and make you more lively. And I wasn't sure how I felt about that either, because I tried it. I tried this and all the things. But I felt awkward and confused because I wasn't used to that. And then she continues and she goes, and I also want to get in touch with your therapist. I feel like I have a right to know what you're talking about with her because you're in my house. And I really think you need Jesus. And that I really was not sitting with because it felt like a breach of privacy. And also, like, my understanding of God and Jesus is different from hers. So I wasn't so keen on taking Jesus' advice from her. And so, yeah, I didn't appreciate it because it made me feel like they were trying to fix me. And I didn't need fixing, I just needed space. So I let them know that I wasn't about it. And they were like, hey, okay, so you need to like go. And I was like, well, I don't have anywhere to go. So I stayed. Let's say a few weeks passes by. One night it's raining, pouring actually. And whenever it got rainy in Houston, it always like would lure or bring out like these kinds of roaches, actually similar to ones that we have here in North Carolina. And if you know me, you know I hate roaches. I do not like them. I never like them. I don't even want to kill them. I don't want to see them, nothing. And so as I'm being awakened from this thunderstorm and there's a lot of rain is pouring and I know they're probably going to come out, I'm getting paranoid about them crawling on me while I'm sleeping. So I decide to take the rest of my slumber to the living room couch, which I knew maybe I shouldn't have done because in my family, couches are not for laying down on and they're not for sitting down even. They're actually just decoration. So like, I knew maybe that wasn't a good idea, but I was like, you know what? I don't like roaches, so I'm not about it. The morning comes and my aunt sees me sleeping on the couch and she wasn't about that. And so we get into it. And I don't really remember how the conversation started. I also don't really remember, what the middle of it was, but I do remember the end. And she said, I think it's your time to go. And I said, you're right. It is my time to go. I was there for 3 months. I was supposed to be there for 6. I only made it to 3. And within a week, I was back on a plane to New York to fend for myself. But, when I left, I wasn't the same. I was different. I was stronger, less depressed, because despite all of the tensions and the culture clashes between my aunt and I, she was the only person who could provide me what I needed the most, which was stability. Living with her, being in her house with nothing to do but heal, allowed me to do exactly just that. When I first got there, my schedule was very much like sleeping, crying, eating, sleeping, crying, eating, sleeping, crying, eating. And while I was there, over time, it slowly became, sleeping, crying, go outside, eating, sleeping, exercise, eating, sleeping, go ride your bike, crying, sleeping, eating. There was some variety there. And so I have her to thank for that. And, quite honestly, I can understand her situation when I look back on it. It's really hard to deal with a depressed person that you don't really know, but you also feel responsible for. Like, that's really difficult. And so, if anything else, I will give her props because, those very same therapy appointments that she felt like I didn't need to go to or that she wanted to know everything about, she was the one who drove me there every week. She dropped me off and she picked me up because above all else, she loved me. And so what I will say, or what I will end you off on is, that was a very difficult situation, but funny enough, I think all the fighting, which made the situation even more difficult, helped me heal because it made me realize that I'm powerful and that I'm strong and to believe in myself, even if I seem really weird to other people. So thank you.
Oh, Elkema, I so love that, even if it seemed weird to other people. Like, yeah, I hear you got your fan club in the studio
Yes.
with you.
Yes, live on
That is so beautiful. I told you, like, I really love that story. And I think that when you said that, she loved you, yes, she wanted you to do
Yes.
Jesus differently.
Mhm. Yes.
She wanted you to have a different, she wanted you to have a different Jesus. Like your Jesus brand was not working with her. She was like, okay,
Right.
look, I'm gonna need you to be louder. And so we
Right.
do loud Jesus up in here. Like you too quiet up in there. I don't like who you talking to. Jesus need to hear you.
He would say
Make a
those
joyful
exact
noise.
kinds of things. Yeah.
But I love that, and I think that is so interesting because I've been thinking a lot about what does love look like.
Hmm.
People can say a lot of different things. What do you do? What do you do? She took you there.
Yeah,
She
she
took
did.
you in. Yeah. And then when y'all both mutually agreed, it was time to go, you know, exit stage left, right?
Mhm.
Well, thank you for trusting that. I'll just say to the audience, I told Elkema, I said, listen, do not give me cute, give me courageous. And this was courageous. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Job well done. Okay, I'm
you.
going to put you backstage. Great job.
Okay.
One of the things that I genuinely dislike and I discourage when I am producing or curating storytelling events is everybody always wants to show up with their superhero, superheroine. And the thing that really connects us are those vulnerable spaces and digging deep and going underneath. And so I don't call it exposure, I call it courage. Telling this courageous story. And so I absolutely love this. So thanks again, Elkema. Now, this next storyteller, she is, like me, a wide open book. Every time, the very first storytelling set I produced in LA years ago, Star was one of my featured storytellers. And, we're in LA. Star, I think, flew in from, I think she was living in Phoenix. And so she was in LA, but everyone else that I had produced on the set, the majority of them were based in LA. And so she does this funny bit where she's like, we're all in the green room and, they're looking over their notes and they're practicing their facial expressions. So I was like, I was putting on my makeup. And then she says something like, okay, I'm gonna need y'all to do less. Or whatever it was that she said to them, it broke the tension and they all just fell out laughing. And then when we all came together at the end of the show, they all said like Star was their superstar. She was their person who just gave them permission to be less nervous, to be fully themselves, and the audience most definitely received them. That is who she is. And it feels like for any theme I have, she's got a story for it. And as we center our crazy aunties and our godmothers, Star has a beautiful story that she wants to tell in her very comedic and flavorful way about her Aunt Fronnie. So with that, please welcome Mrs. Star Robinson Russell, who 2 days ago returned from her destination wedding in Jamaica. And she is here with us tonight. Prepare for all of the things. Receive her graciously as she dresses her truth and story.
I have been trained from birth by the most beautiful, resilient, intelligent women. But the most sophisticated of them all, no, was not my mother, not this time, was actually my grandmother's sister, my Aunt Fronnie. My Aunt Fronnie, at the tender age of 8 years old, transformed everything that I ever thought a woman was supposed to be, supposed to do, supposed to think, how they were supposed to live. At the tender age of 8, she changed everything about what I knew at that time and what I believed. Right. So my Aunt Fronnie lived by herself. Like I said, she was my grandmother's sister. Right. So she lived by herself. She was unmarried. She had no children. Right. So considering, again, she was my grandmother's sister, like that was like, oh gosh, like, who does that? Right. We didn't know anything about that. So my cousin Monte and I, who we're both 8 years old, right? This is still my kicking it partner. Um, 8 years old, every day, and especially in the summertime, we went to one stop. We went to the store, back and forth to the store. We went all day long in the summertime, all year long, one stop, right? To the candy store. I mean, we maybe for some of the other neighbors might be going to get groceries, but we going to the one stop religiously all day long in the summer. Well, to get to one stop, you had to pass Aunt Fronnie's house, right? So for us in our 8-year-old minds, right? Aunt Fronnie in this house, she by herself, she lonely, she's sad. I mean, she's not married, she don't have no kids, she don't have no husband, nothing. So there's no way we can go past her house and not stop. We got to stop. So look, y'all, that meant we stopping every time. Every time we go to the store, 5 times a day, 6 times a day, we stop by Aunt Fronie's house. Now, we didn't always want to. But I mean, what was we gonna do? She was in that house, lonely and sad, right? Now, if she saw us walk past his house and not stop, oh, that was only gonna compound the sadness and the loneliness that she was already experiencing, right? So we would stop. Never in never in a million years, never did we think that she chose this life. Never did we think that, right? Who would do that? Like I said. So when we go to her house, we stop. Sometimes we would stop on the way back from the candy store. And we go to her house, and now mind you, it did not help our 8-year-old minds that when she saw us step up on this porch for the 5th time, right, that we made her whole life. She would be smiling, opening that door, get on in here. Right? She had a real raspy voice, my Aunt Fronnie. So we go in the house, right? Now, even though we had candy, we didn't walk back and forth from the candy store. We had to eat her orange slices. She gave us orange slices. And so, of course, we had to eat them. They would be in the most beautiful crystal candy dish sitting on her table in her house. So we'd walking around Aunt Fronie's house, eating orange slices, looking at her home, which was so neat and minimal and just perfect, just like her, right? So we were walking around eating orange slices and looking at pictures. It was like a museum, right? Her house. And she would be telling us stories about the people in the pictures, some of them her siblings that maybe had passed on as little kids and babies, a set of twins even. Her parents had. She was showing us all these pictures and of the people, back home. Right. So sometimes we'd be there 45 minutes, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, just depends on how the conversation was going and what me and Monte had to do. Right. Because of course she didn't have no life, right? Just us. So we leave and go on about our day. Well, one particular afternoon, me and Monte are in a whole debate, y'all. We're in a whole debate. We are standing on that corner, on that sidewalk, just past like Sherman Street Church, about to go to one stop, man. And we sitting there and we looking at Aunt Fronie's house and we like, man, we do not want to stop. You know what I'm saying? We do not want to stop. But we know we got to because she in that house sad and lonely, right? And we got to stop. So we go ahead, we stop. And so this particular time, when we walked past her house, we did see that there was a truck outside the house. We'd seen it, before, and we knew that she had, some friends and, some friends here or there. Now, they were never over there. All the 1,000 times we went to her home, they were never there. Right? But we had heard that, she went out from time to time to church and some events in the community, so we see the truck and we go on to the door. Now, when we got there, like I said, she was dressed up, right? My Aunt Fronnie used to be so pretty, but in her lace, right? So I got on lace again, telling this story in honor of my Aunt Fronnie, but lace and red lipstick, which was a staple, right? That was almost daily, but for sure, if she was going somewhere. So she got on red dress, lace dress, red lipstick, her pearl earrings on. I mean, she's looking beautiful. Had her sweater over her arm and her pocketbook. Now, she opened the door and we see all of that, right? But she's, hey, come on in here, right? So we come on in and, get our orange slices and we go to talking, right? And she go to talking and now, she put her stuff down, put her pocketbook and her sweater down and move right on around as if, nothing was going on. So finally, my cousin Monte, for whatever reason, gets up and goes to the door, and he looks outside the screen door, and he finally comes back and says, he turned around and he's looking kind of strange, and he said, "Hey, Fronnie, you got somewhere to go?" And she kind of laughed. She said, "Yes, baby, I do. That's my boyfriend, HDG outside, and yeah, I'm going on a date." Brains explode, right? Monte and I's brains explode. We are like, what? Boyfriend? Date? Right? You going somewhere? Right now, mind you, we didn't been in the house a minute. We didn't do about 15 minutes. I don't even know how long we didn't been in there. Right. So we didn't been in there talking. So we kind of hustling. We like, oh, well, shoot, you know what I'm saying? Well, we about to go. Well, we about to go. We ain't gonna, hold you up. We didn't already held you up. Right. And she was like, no, y'all better sit down. Like the first time she ever even kind of spoke in that tone. Like, and we was like, oh, okay. So we sat down, but we, looking kind of like, okay, so she just about to, keep him out there waiting. So, she see us sitting there. She talking and we didn't got quiet, right? Because we judging a little bit, not even a little bit. We completely judging. You being rude, first off. Secondly, we can't wait to get outside so we can talk about this shit, right? Our brains have exploded. Like, we got to get outside so we can talk about this. So she kind of sees the trepidation on our faces, but she don't let up. She kind of laughs a little bit, but she just keep on talking, right? So finally, Monte and I decide, look, we got someplace to go. So she could go. We didn't been there another 10 minutes. So that she could go ahead and go on her date, right? So she laughs and she's like, all right, she finally go ahead and release us, right? So we hurrying up, getting our candy, getting our stuff, getting our ice, our orange slices for the road, and we on our way. So Monte gets out the door first, gets out the door first. And so as I get ready to step out the door, she says to me, stop. All of my elders never pronounced the R. It was just star, not star. Love it. I miss it so much. Anyway, star, come here. And so I turn around. I walk back to her, I say, yes, ma'am. And she's standing there. She said, do you see me? So I look her up and down. I said, yes, ma'am. So then she got in my 8-year-old face and she said, do you see me? I stood back up and I said, yes, ma'am. And she put her shoulders back and took a step back and stood there. And she said, do you see me? You see me? So now I'm getting confused. I'm like, yeah, I see you, ain't Fronnie. You know what I'm saying? Like, yes, ma'am. All 6 foot, 175-pound, glorious stallion of a woman that you are. I see you. I see you, ain't Fronnie. So I know she knew that we was kind of, possibly, judging, right? So she stands there, she just looks at me. She gets back in my face and she says, because what we have, they will always wait. She stood back up, looked at me, put her shoulders back. And I said, yes, ma'am. She looked at me again, got back in my face and said, because what we have, they will always wait. She stood back up and she said, because you're going to look just like this when you grow up. Looked at me again and said it one more time, y'all. Because what we have, they will always wait. Stood up, grabbed her pocketbook and got her shawl, kissed me, and said, come on, let's go. And we walked, boy, you should have seen me get my shoulders back. Looking at this stallion, this 6-footer in these heels, all of who she is, it was all of who I am, because she was all of who she was and is, right? So we walk outside. Monte's waiting for me, right? Because again, we cannot wait to talk about this. Get to HG, her boyfriend, her date, hops out of that truck, hustling, getting around that truck as she glides. And he opened that door. She looked at me and Monte, smiled, kicked that big long leg up in that truck, got in that truck, and he closed the door and ran around. And Aunt Fronnie looked at me and Monte, and we were standing there like this. We cannot believe it, right? Because did I say this was my grandmother's sister, right? Boyfriend. Again, my Aunt Fronnie took my 8-year-old self and set me on my feet, on my launching pad into womanhood, right? Because in that moment, y'all, I knew that I could choose me. I could choose me. She chose her and her life, and she lived it her way. She chose her. At that time, in that moment, at 8 years old, I said, I have options. I have choices. I can be anything. I don't just have to be a mother and a wife, right? I can be me. I can be a woman. I can be a Starla of Antoinette Robinson, now Russell. I can be me. And she allowed me to understand and know that. And everything that I am, everything that I am now, as we embark upon Mother's Day, embracing my daughter with, comes from everything that I learned from my Aunt Fronnie that day. And as I watched her go through her entire life, the only woman that I knew that was not married, did not have children by choice. And although my mother has never been married, I am one of 2 children that she has. So my Aunt Fronnie set a standard and about womanhood that I'd never had before. And I am eternally, eternally, eternally grateful. And I promise you, Aunt Fronnie, that my daughter knows that for what we have, they will always wait.
Ashe. Ashe, they will always wait. And I certainly love that line when you said, in that moment, I knew I could choose me.
Yes.
That is like all where I am right now in this season. I can
Yes.
choose me. I think too often we don't operate with the same agency that Aunt Fronnie has.
Not at all. And again, I am grateful. Even in now, I am now a new bride, as you stated.
Yes.
Everything about who I chose to share my life with in my 3rd and 4th quarter has to do with the fact that I am allowed to be me.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that is because of my Aunt Fronnie. I'm allowed to be who I am,
That's
authentically me. And you have to surround yourself by people that allow that, and then remove yourself from people that don't.
absolutely, because that also is a choice.
Absolutely.
I in that moment I knew I could choose me, and also I know I can choose to be to dismiss anything that does not serve
Serve.
me. Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much, sis, for sharing this. This is like, and you said Aunt
Mhm.
Fronnie is looking down. She's with us.
Yes, she
Absolutely.
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 And all
Yes.
my
Yes.
lace and red lipstick.
Yes. All right. Well, let me put you backstage. Don't leave me. Hold on.
I will.
Y'all, I told y'all were going to love that story. Wow. Okay. So thank y'all so much for joining us. Now, there are 4 things that we do before we close out Jesus, Jazz, and Dessert Wine. There are 4 things that we do. The first is we offer a public lament. So I just returned 2 days ago from a fabulous time the last weekend of the Jazz Fest in New Orleans. I was there because Frankie Beverly normally closes it out, as he did this year. And New Orleans is one of my favorite cities on the planet. And I got to spend time with my sister friend Dawn Marie. She also loves New Orleans. We just always have a really, really good time. But I had been, prior to New Orleans, I had been just exhausted. I was just overwhelmed. I was depleted. And I know my bliss. It's like Jesus, Jazz, and Dessert Wine. I'm somewhere up in that realm. I'm going to find happiness. I'm going to find joy. I'm going to find a good time. And so the Jazz Fest is that space. Like New Orleans is that space. Don Marie, is that space. So I know how to get there. But it had just been so long since I had any type of engaging of my bliss in that way, to that extent, that by the time I got there, I was just like, oh, just bring it all on, right? When I was on the flight to New Orleans, and it finally felt like I could just lay my burdens down. I could just stop thinking. I could slow down. I could just be still. On that flight into New Orleans, the last flight, I had a layover. And when I was flying back into when I was flying into New Orleans on that second and final flight, decompressing, I'm finally feeling still. And I began to assess, like, what is it that I'm feeling? Like, what am I still holding on to? Like, what is it that, even with my morning walks and everything, my prayer walks, sunrise experiences, my journaling, all of that, like, I feel like I'm still kind of like there's a lot that's there. So I had some time. So I pulled out my journal, and I was like, I think I only had like a few pages left in this particular journal. It's a leather-bound journal that a friend gave me, and it says it's etched on the cover, "Love lies within." Within these pages lies love. And so I said, I've been meaning to list out all of my grievances to see what stands out. So that's what I did. I just said, okay, now these are my grievances, and I listed about 18 things. 18 things that I was like still holding on to. But there were 2 that stood out. The first was that I'd said something like, I lament that the world is too fragile to handle what I have to say. So much of what had been happening of late had been dealing with people who were extremely fragile, who were asking me to shrink or to be a gentler, kinder, Lex, when I'm telling everybody, hey, I am overwhelmed and I need the grace that I'm constantly extending to other people right now. And somehow they just couldn't see that. And so I'm being asked to give more even when I'm depleted. And then when I showed up in a particular space and I just gave a little bit, everybody crumbled. And so those grievances, I realized, I wrote down, the world is too fragile to handle what I have to say. And I lamented that. But then the second thing that struck me was based on a conversation that I've been having with a series of my young mentees. And beautiful women, love God, faithful, all of these things. But this is what I wrote about them. I wrote, I'm grieving, or I'm holding on to the way Black girls who are Christians feel shackled by standards and fear of the unknown. There was something about the fact that they could still say the name Jesus and have a very deep and meaningful relationship, and somehow it was the fear of what was next or what was unknown that just grappled them, and it just held them hostage. The rest of the world is going about like Aunt Fronnie. Char said Aunt Fronnie was like, what I got, they'll wait for. Everybody else is just kind of keeping it moving. But my mentees who share, their beautiful, joyful, flavorful, melanated experiences, steeped in their faith and their belief in Jesus Christ, somehow, with all of that, there was still this palpable fear that they just lived with. And I lament that. I was very broken by the fact that there was something that we were experiencing and that we just couldn't seem to access, allegedly. But here's my prophetic hope. I have been, when I'm in a space of lament or when I'm in a space of like, I'm just exhausted, I go to the Psalms. I go to the biblical poetry. I go to where there is room for this wide swath of expression. And I have been meditating on Psalm 145, but this particular verse really struck me. It said, the Lord helps the fallen and lifts those bent beneath their loads. The Lord helps the fallen and lifts those bent beneath their loads. The prophetic hope to which I clung was that I was not alone, and that I would and was given the help to be lifted from everything that I was carrying, until I figured out exactly how to effectively lay it down. What does it mean laying it down look like? I don't know. I do know that I found hope, and my prophetic hope was in the fact that the Lord was present and has a promise and a commitment to lift those of us who are bent beneath their loads. So if you happen to be in this space where you too are feeling the heaviness or feeling the grief, I pray that you find your way to your bliss. But also don't ever give up on the hope that the load that you carry, it might feel a particular way in this moment. And I think that if anything, it's a good time to reflect and to say, okay, look, why am I carrying this? How do I lay this down? And begin to find some very credible and very solid plans to do that, because you have agency. You can choose you. You can choose to lay it down. You can choose to move away from anything that does not serve you. And what if that is God's way of helping those of us bent beneath our loads, lifting those of us who are bent beneath our loads? What if what God does is first illuminate for us is that we have agency, so that we can just rise up, put our shoulders back like Aunt Fronnie, and keep it moving. So that is my prophetic hope. The third thing that we talk about at Jesus, Jazz, and Dessert Wine is the energizing memory. And I want to pull up my energizing memory. So this is me over this weekend with my sister friend, Dawn Marie, and two strange men. They were sitting up close at the Frankie Beverly concert. We were at the Gospel Tent. Mississippi Mass Choir had just performed, and then we had to go use the restroom, and then we got in place for Frankie. But by then, the whole crowd had already gathered, and so Dawn and I were like, okay, we need to get close. And so we figured out exactly how to get close. You just find a stranger that's up close, and you start waving at them. Hey, hold on, here, come. So these are the two dudes that we were pointing and waving at. And we got up close and had a great time. Everybody got to know a good hustle. Okay, so that's my hustle for getting to the front. The fourth and final thing that we do at Jesus, Jazz, and Dessert Wine is we talk about giving. And so for those of you who might be feeling like you are bent beneath your loads, I pray that you give yourself grace, space, permission to ask for what you need, and then to have others help you to meet that need. I love an Elkema story. She was very clear. No, I don't need to lift my hands and, run up and down the aisles or join your, the praise dance team or any of that, for this big production. I just need space. Give me space and watch the healing take place. And that is exactly what happened. Give yourself permission to decide what it is that you need, what it is that you need to take on, what it is that you need to let go, where it is that you need to move, how you need to navigate. You have agency. You have the ability and the responsibility to choose what's real, right, and honorable for you. So be it. And before I let you go, I want to show you, oh, where is it? Right here. Okay. So I am in the process of, as soon as I actually end this live, I immediately go straight no chaser into getting this particular production staged. My latest piece called Dignity, 3 Centuries and 60 Minutes, has been accepted into the National Women's Theater Festival. Woohoo! It'll be this summer, and I just put the link for tickets. There will. It's going to be a hybrid event, so it's going to be produced live here in Raleigh, North Carolina, but there will be a virtual link as well. They're doing all of the things. I'm super excited. I have been working so diligently on Jesus, Jazz, and Dessert Wine, and then also taking an exit and going off to New Orleans to have some, some big girl time. Some big girl fun, that they were like, hey, Alexus, could you please contact? So literally right before I was getting dressed to come to the studio today, they called me and I was like, listen, y'all, I was like, I have this event tonight. And then after the night, I'm not leaving town. I'm not doing anything. I am full on with Dignity. So grab that link from the chat, share it, get your tickets, sign on, meet me there. Let's have a good time. And I am just looking forward to this whole journey, this whole experience. All right. So with that, our closing blessing, our blessing and our sending. I am grateful for our mothers. I'm grateful that they give us life, they sustain our life, they are superheroines, angelic beings. They do the absolute most. And I'm also grateful that everybody needs somebody to come alongside them to do the very important work of mothering. And for that, we have our crazy aunties and our godmothers. So on Sunday, when we are doing the absolute most for our mothers and honoring them as they should be honored, they do all the things. May we also remember the Aunt Marys, the Aunt Fronnies, the everything is bigger in Texas aunties who just want you to be well. They all have great intentions for us, and they have shown up in a way that is real and right for them. So may we also remember to bless them as we are blessing our mothers. Be good to yourself. Know that you have the opportunity and the responsibility to choose you. You choose you, then we all come up, we all do better. Everything works out the way it's supposed to, bigger and better than we know. And may it be so. Ashe, Selah, so be it. Thank you so much for joining us for this hybrid event. I'll be reaching out to you online to get some feedback on how this worked for y'all. All right? Okay, be blessed.
My funny Valentine, sweet comet Valentine.